All right, it says it's preparing to live stream, setting up your meeting. All right, here I think we are.
Here we are.
Says we are live streaming on YouTube. So in case there is anyone out there listening, this is a test and just a test. So if there are faux pas, flubs, or anything else like that, it's because this is the first time I've ever tried live streaming on YouTube. Welcome to Word Salad. Dani Katz is here. Good evening. It's Thursday evening. This is very unusual for us.
It's so unusual. I'm kind of wondering if I can pull up YouTube and see us live.
I can see us behind. I think I can see that there's
Okay, so we have the one watching is Laura.
Salad. Dani Katz is here. Turn your volume off.
Sorry about that.
Do it too and turn the volume off.
And I'm just seeing how we're showing up. So it's going one at a time.
And we have someone in the listening room that is someone in the chat room that isn't us.
Hi, Joe Kay. Thanks for being here while we experiment.
Okay, I can't look at that while I do this, otherwise
it's distracting. Okay, I was just curious.
At the end, we can decide if we want to take questions from the chat room or whatever, and then I can look at that when I'm not trying to also think about something else. So Dani and I are going to be live streaming in the new year, so we're just trying it out because we haven't done it before. So here we are, and Dani is going to tell me about things and see what I think.
Okay, before I tell you about things and see what you think, I want to ask you about another thing. There's a Facebook thread that someone's like exposing the Dalai Lama as a globalist shill, like no duh. You walked me through that one a couple of years ago. Also, P.S., the Dalai Lama lineage is the Genghis Khan murderous, genocidal conqueror lineage that tried to wipe out all of Tibetan shamanism. So I find it like I'd be curious to know like where in history that lineage became elevated to spiritual leaders from genocidal conquerors.
I wonder if this has something, this is going to sound so weird, but like, wasn't there some weird, like, I feel like someone that we know has someone that they know that went to go meet the Dalai Lama, and Jack Dorsey was there at the same time as them. And so I wonder if there's something in the Twitter files about this. And so now it's acceptable for everyone on Facebook to also talk about exposing the Dalai Lama. And that's why it's not that it's actually new news today, but this is just the first time you're allowed to freely talk about it in certain corners. I don't know. Or if it's just that like people are just, you know, like you said, no duh, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Competing thoughts. I don't know that person, but I do know someone who met the Dalai Lama because she was
You do know that person. I'm just not saying it because I don't know if he wants to be known, but you do know.
Oh, okay. Well, I know someone else who met the Dalai Lama. She was the screenwriter on 7 Years in Tibet, and she said he was a total asshole. And she was like a really devoted Mahayana Buddhist. And at the time, I was thinking, well, like, we don't know the personal dynamics or karma or soul contracts between teachers and students. So I was still like allowing him to stay on that pedestal. But I did weigh in on the thread and was like, okay, he's from the Genghis Khan lineage. And he also took $1 million from the Nexium sex cult. And then someone's like, no, that's been debunked. Are you aware of that being debunked?
No, I'm not aware of that being debunked, but I'm sure that like, that's just a reflexive, you know, it's like a reflex from some of these people, right? Like everything like that is always debunked, right? But it's interesting how this happens with the gurus, right? So you have like your tier one global gurus who are people like Mother Teresa, Dalai Lama, Gandhi, right? And they all have some nasty shit attached to them and in their background. They're more of like these sort of like globalist mockingbird type of gurus. Then you have like your tier two, which is like your Osho, right? Or whatever, that there's like something else going on with them. That isn't like your globalist mockingbird thing. That's more like your Jonestown cult experiment with certain ideas around technologies or mind control or you know, whatever, right? And so it's just interesting to look, with.
Oh, wait, hold up, because I want to talk about that tier. Because as you're saying it, I'm like, who else is in that tier? And I'm thinking like Sai Baba, all the yoga teachers that they take down. And I also wonder if it isn't all necessarily an op, but just what naturally happens when we elevate these people to guru status. They're necessarily going to take advantage of that because they're human beings with egos.
Well, I think just like everything else we talk about, like I was explaining to, I can't remember who I was explaining. I think I was explaining to Lindsay on the show last night about like the various tiers of the op and how they have like people like ready to go at each layer. And it's based on like, they want to sell the public as much bullshit as they will take, right? They'd rather just everybody believe the mainstream bullshit and not have to worry about it. But they know that there's annoying people out there like you and I. They know that some people are going to wake up and da-da-da-da. So they have like the next tier down, the next tier down, the next tier down, but they're going to stick with the tier closest to total bullshit that they can and still get away with it, right? And so the way that they manage all of those tiers gets into a lot of different things, including what you're talking about. So I think sometimes like it's a very convenient thing for people who like to run ops, that it's the natural tendency of people, specifically certain kinds of people, but people in general, right? To like elevate someone who does something well, does something first, has a certain kind of charisma or charm, like onto a pedestal that they may or may, well, I don't think anyone needs to be a guru or a pedestal, but like some people actually are really good at something or like really have achieved something, and others just have charisma and that they're able to convince everyone that they have. So because we do this naturally, they don't always have to like recruit someone to play that role. They can go fishing in the pond of fish that are already swimming, right? So I think there's some that are like that. And then there are others that are controlled from the beginning, right? Based on, okay, like we have this person, we want you to play this role. Others, they find someone and they know he's already compromised or easily compromisable, so we can infiltrate that, or we don't even have to infiltrate that. All we have to do is watch for a while, right? And then on down to, progressively more sort of esoteric ways of getting things to sort of happen. But yeah, I mean, anything like any kind of hierarchy, right? Any kind is easy to do that. And once you have your formula down, it's probably pretty rare that like you find some like, major opposition to it. They don't go around trying to do it to people who are already wise to that. So right. Their failure rate is probably pretty low. They know when like, this group of people, they've already run as many things as they can on them. They're wise to that game now, right? Or they're just, not the kind of person. I think that it's a lot harder to pull scams on people who were not raised with any kind of religion than it is for people who were raised with religion. And then once
were you raised with any religion?
No, but right. That doesn't mean I can't be scammed, but the amount of things I can be scammed and the way I'm scammed is just different. And I also I've been scammed a couple of times in my life, but I usually figure it out real quick. Right. So it only happens once, or it happens for a few minutes and then I'm like, you're right. I've never just continued when something seems, wrong to just go down and try and fix it. And I just walk away. Right. But so some people, they have a traditional kind of religion. And then even within that, there's certain kind of religions that breed more of a guru type of relationship with the religion. And others are a little bit more independent in the way you study it. And then there's also the anti-religions, which are really religions as well, like atheism, right? Kind of thing where some of the atheists what's his name? Larkin Rose has an interesting idea about atheism and anarchy, right? He says you can be an anarchist, but not an atheist. But you can't really truly be an atheist if you're not also an anarchist. So the people who say they're atheists, they do believe in a sort of mysterious deity. It's just not one that the religious people do. Government, right? They're great, right? So
science.
Yes,
it should be PSYENCE. Science. Ooh, that'll be the next.
That'll be your next shirt. You should have Katie in a lab with a little beaker and some. Yeah.
It's so good.
I think Laura is here to try.
Did something happen?
There's already 31 people in the room.
And I don't know if you can read.
They're all, oh, that's awesome.
Yay! Yay!
People like commenting.
Yay! Okay. Well, this is we're gonna talk about let's see. Like, are we done on this thread, or is there more to add to the Guru PSYOP thread at this moment?
We're done on this thread. I do think, and it's escaping me now, but in like watching our show, our last words, and I'm not going to say who we did it with because I'm really erring on the side of diplomatic right now, but like it's really opened my eyes to the fact that I don't think anyone is organically famous. And I really like think none. And how easy it is to like puff someone up and then get them to be your shill for you. But if it comes to me, the specific example that I'm thinking of, I'll jump in with it. But it was like in a different realm, but the same thing that we're talking about.
I do think there's occasional organic 15 minutes of fame, right? Like, what's her name? Suni Lee just won the Olympics unexpectedly last summer, and she's just doing college gymnastics at Auburn now. There's not like this ongoing tour and all this stuff, right? I don't think she expected to win the Olympics, whether that part was arranged or planned or not. I don't think she expected it. She did. Like, yay, that was fun. I'm moving on, right? And, so, and the same thing could be with like, occasionally you'll have like a very small side role. Somebody plays in a TV show or a movie that's like popular for one season, and then you never hear about them again. And they just kind of continue doing small side work, or that was just so I think there's occasional, but once our attention is like, we have like drawn in an abnormal way for any kind of like repetitive or elongated period of time, then you have to start to be suspicious. And especially when you see people who like, you can't quite figure out what's so important or why this person is so famous or whatever it is, suspicious for sure. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to respond to the comments that were about this thread before we move on to the next topic. And I think there was really just one when I looked back. Doom's Dungeon said the mainstream is no longer what most are paying attention to, especially youth. The alt media micro celebrities have been the new mainstream. And he pointed out Greenwald, Taibbi, Rogan, and Malone, right? I think that Rogan like walks the line. I mean, he's pretty famous. I don't know how alternative he is anymore. But yes, I agree with you that like, it's not edgy to care that much about like mainstream celebrities, whether they be in the information world or in like the make-believe world, which they're pretty much, they're one and the same now. But yeah, no, I mean, I think like even within what you said, there's like layers, just like we talked about how bullshit or how compromised or how vulnerable to those things some of those characters are. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's a lot more money being put into that now than the celebrity shit.
Well, and also since we brought up Malone, so Emily knows I had a meltdown this week when Robert Forti sent me a link to a Robert Malone RFK interview. And he's like, I love this so much. And I was like, you and I had just done our afterwards. And I'm like, oh my God, like I talk to Robert Forti every single day. And I'm like, no one hears me. Like no one is listening. No one is paying attention. Why are you following this? But like, I used all my tools and I'm like, why do you like it? What resonated with you? And he's like, because he's saying everything that I've been saying. And I'm like, okay, twofold. One, this is the in. Get these people to say what we want them to say. And then we think that we like them because they're parroting us. But I only watched like the first 40 minutes of that interview. Malone didn't say anything in his wheelhouse. He didn't talk about viruses or vaccines or medicine. He was talking about propaganda and the Smith-Mundt Act. And I'm like, is no one noticing this, that they take these people and they get them to talk about things that we want to hear, but they have no expertise in, and they're elevated to God status. And he was also using, this was the big hook for me, is he's like, concerned that Elon Musk is getting radicalized. And I'm like, guys, no one on the good team is ever going to use that word. Like, it seems so obvious to me.
So obvious, right? It's so, and yeah. It's, I don't know if it's a coincidence that and we're going to talk about this part later, but it's just coming to my mind that Tucker Carlson did his thing on the JFK, so of course related to RFK, about the same time that Malone announced his lawsuit of $25 million or whatever. So there seems to be some heightened energy around that stuff. But in response to what you said, and I feel like when you said, like, I'm going to use all my tools and go, right? I wanted to like buy you a pair of black patent leather shoes that you could say it in and then go to church afterwards or something like that, right? With little bows on them. Anyway, so I think this is, along with the human condition of like wanting to elevate someone in the guru sense, we desperately seek external validation, right? Not only from like people we agree with to keep doing that, but someone who used to not think what we think and now think what we think, because that somehow proves us right. And we're very concerned with that. So like, it's a human condition, but in this case, the obsession with authority, like think about like, if a cop pulls you over and thinks you're guilty of something, and then you are somehow able to convince him that you're not only are you relieved you're not getting a ticket, you feel fucking smart because now you got the cop to agree with you. There's like a double, like jolt of like, yeah, right? kind of thing. So it's this goes along with, and I was talking about it initially from another direction, but I come to think the same thing. When I say he who is the least triggered can know the most, I mean in both ways, not just getting upset or outraged, but also liking something too much. Right? Like really enjoying a compliment too much. Like I feel uncomfortable when someone tells me something that is exactly what I want to hear. Like I feel worried about it to the extent that like I probably turned down some options and opportunities that I didn't necessarily need to, but like I'm afraid of that water where like someone's blowing shit up my ass, right? Well, yeah, right. So but I think this is like something we have to be monitoring ourselves for, just like we're monitoring all these people saying this stuff and whatever, right? So I think that's an issue. And then to your other point about how he's there talking about things he doesn't know, right? All of that would be wonderful if the opening line of the conversation was like, I was so asleep, I didn't know anything. And since all of this happened, I've woken up to this. Did you hear about this? Were you aware of that? Da, 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 da. But no, now he's teaching everybody who already knew that the lesson over again, and then attaching it to Elon Musk is getting radicalized, right? So it's like the combination platter that this Chinese restaurant is serving up is like one that's like, sure, it's when you go to a Chinese restaurant and you order the lunch special, there's always something on the plate that isn't really what you wanted, but you take it and you feel sort of compelled to eat it because it was sort of free and so are you. So we've obviously both done this, right? There's always like the weird pile of pickles or like, the wonton that like doesn't actually have anything in the middle. It's just like fried dough that is just carbs and not even that good or whatever, right? So that.
And it also reminded me, I'm like, wait, did he just join the Consilience Project and I missed it? Because it's the same script and he's doing the same things. And then RFK, which I am so suspicious, he said, a lot of people probably don't know this, but Obama got rid of the Smith-Mundt Act. And I'm like, that's the IDW script, to tell us before you tell it that we don't know, to establish your intellectual superiority, when I'm like, no, we all know this. Why do you tell us we don't know this? And I don't understand. And this was my thing with Robert, because Robert knows RFK, is like, why has a man who has spent at least the last decade of his career fighting injuries from the things that we're not going to say because we're live on a certain channel, that he knows very well what those are, and now he's palling around and giving his validation to someone who's in the process of making more of those things?
Right.
How do we rectify that?
Our little friend with the blue eye, well, I think RFK has blue eyes too, but the one that we interviewed is doing the same thing, because he didn't push back about that thing you said about that, right? So the other thing is like, this is more the truthful statement, okay? The thing that Obama did that you all knew about but didn't actually care about then, and to be honest, neither did I, But now when it suits our interests, because people, you know, are we're in a different place, like we're going to go back and like, now I understand why I should have cared. That still would have been dishonest because they understood then. They just chose not to care anyway, because it's like, as long as it's my dictator, it's okay.
To be fair, it's possible it wasn't on their radar. But
Not RFK, not RFK, RFK.
Oh, for sure. I mean, keep in mind, Mickey and we did a project for him before all this cuckoo-ness started. So they both knew about that back then.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. Let's see what the chat room is saying about this thread, and then we can go on. Let's see what we got here. All right. Oh, there's a lot of them since the last part. Okay. Doom's Dungeon. Some things can start off organic, but it's how they evolve after. Abby Martin, 100%, right? The Abby Martin situation, like, I find her very disturbing, though I agree with a lot of things she says, mostly about the Israel-Palestine situation. But if you watch her evolution over time and without what I see as like adequate explanation, and with the absolute hostility she has for certain people who used to be her supporters in her early days, it's disturbing. Laner, anyone see the latest nonsense from Sean Penn spewing his non-medical expertise on how everyone who doesn't get the shot should all be fired and not allowed to drive? Yeah, I mean, he's like the senator from Pfizer and Ukraine simultaneously, or something. Remember like that.
Line in that movie with Ben Stiller and Robert Downey Jr. in blackface,
right? And
Robert Downey Jr. was like, "Don't ever go full retard." I feel like Sean Penn has gone full retard.
Beyond full retard, right? Beyond full, yeah. Let's see. Laura's acknowledging her inexperience in chat room.
Laura, you're doing great.
Interesting that Malone's debut on alt media was on The Last American Vagabond. Is that right?
I didn't know that. I first saw him on
Dark Horse podcast.
Yeah.
Dark Horse podcast about a year and a half ago. Yeah. All right. Hi, Miss. Hi to everyone. Lots of people have joined us and are happy to see us live streaming. So thanks we didn't expect to have any crowd. Then we have a crowd of 45 with no announcement. So thank you. Let's see. Grounded Extracts, James, I love you. We got such nice comments on our show, and I can't wait to do more with you. Thanks for tuning in. Jana is here with her Potemkin vagina for Laura. Okay.
Okay said if everyone hits the thumbs up, it lets other people know that you're live. So thank you for doing that.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Everybody, thumbs up. All right. Let's see. Any more questions? First, Doom says June 2021. Okay, that is interesting because that's Last American Vagabond is where Whitney Webb was for a good period of time, and some others that we have considered for questions. Anywho, so I'm going to have to go back. Dooms, if you can send me that link to that interview, or if you can post it in the chat, if you can find it, but if not, just send it to me when you get a chance. I'd like to take a look at that, because that is not something I knew. And that adds some fuel to the fire. Yeah. Dani?
Emily, I wanted to tell you before I forgot that I mentioned Whitney Webb to Robert, and he's like, ooh, I don't trust her. I've heard some things. So he's going to be sending me something that backs up your perspective on her.
Okay. Well, we'll just see. Like, I'm open. I am not committed to any positions. I'm not getting triggered, and I'm going to attempt to know that it's not a competition, but I want to know as much as I can. So I'm not letting my my glands get stimulated by any story one way or the other. All right. So now you wanted to tell me about you. Well, tell me, like you said, you reached out to Allison McDowell and you wanted to tell me about that, but tell us why you're telling us about that first.
Okay. So it was that same day that I flipped out about the Robert Malone RFK. And I was like, I called you immediately. I'm like, why do we do this? No one is listening. It's not working. It's just ruining everything. So I was pretty despondent. And so the next day I was like, I'm giving up. I'm not doing podcasts anymore. I'm not tracking the news anymore. Humanity can be slaves. I don't care. There's no hope. And then I took 2 hop keto classes in a row, because that's how I channel frustration, by over exercising. and Allison McDowell was doing a live, and I was like, doing dishes, doing other things. And I hear her talking about Jim Rutt and Santa Fe Institute. And I'm like, oh, what? Wait, what? Someone is paying attention. And then she mentions Joe Rogan, and she mentions Ken Wilber and integral theory and Esalen. And then she brings in Charles Eisenstein. And I was just like over the moon. I'm like, oh my God, we're not the only ones. So I weigh in on the chat, and a lot of people there watch, or a chunk of them watch our show, but apparently she's been talking about SFI for a while. So I just got infused with hope. I'm like, okay, we're not the only ones. Other people are seeing what we're seeing. I only watched half an hour of the show. I think it was a 4-hour live stream. Her work is incredible. She was tying it in to experimenting on college students with ESG stuff, and she was tying it into Arizona State University. I'm just catching up now. I was so geeked out. I reached out to her immediately. She said she's not doing any podcasts, so she's not going to come on the podcast, but she did say she's happy to share notes with us. And I mentioned the US Navy piece, and it sounded like she hasn't put that piece together, but I'm really excited to catch up on the pieces she's been putting together. And if anyone in the chat knows more about it than I do, like, please share what you know.
So she's not doing podcasts at all anymore forever, or she's just not doing them right now?
She's not doing them right now at all. And then synchronistically, I got an email on Facebook yesterday from one of Robert Phoenix's tribe, who said that he was excited to hear someone else talking about Santa Fe Institute. And so I was like, what do you know? Like, send me what you know. So it feels like it's bubbling and there's some momentum.
Yeah, I think people have been asking me a lot on my own Locals and Patreon page when we're going to talk about SFI Consilience Lifeboat again. So I think we can start working that back in. Like, I think we got, there was some distraction from that, but that's like a hard one, right? Like, you can talk about it for a bit, but until you really have the time to dive in, because there's not people making like endless YouTubes and writing endless articles about that. So it really is like a research project. It's not like commenting on the news, right? So
research project. One thing that and it's all hate listening on top of it. It's like, I don't like listening to Brett and Heather. I don't like listening to David Fuller. I don't know if I talked about with our crew on our show when I went to the SFI event.
Did I? Call me on the phone.
Should I share that here?
Sure.
So I found out last minute that SFI was doing this event. It was kind of on like social currency. I was a little bit late. But I went, and they had these like 2 social engineers on stage. So they were swearing up and down that they weren't social engineers. Is everything cool on your end, Em?
Yeah, Laura was just letting me know to catch up on the questions because people are asking them. So finish your story and then we'll go to the box.
Okay. So there are 2 social engineers on stage claiming not to be social engineers. And then there's someone from SFI like facilitating a larger conversation. And at one point in the conversation, she goes, sometimes tyranny is a really useful organizational structure. And I was just like, what the fuck? And the whole audience was like growling and visibly like not on board. And I was like, okay, thank God Santa Fe isn't that far gone. So more stuff happens. It was kind of all over the place in terms of like left, right, woke, sane. It was like a mixed bag. But after their conversation, they passed around a microphone, and I was like really aggressive with my hand waving because I wanted to ask, but they didn't call on me. So when the event was over, everyone's walking out of the auditorium, and I'm beelining for the stage to get the SFI woman. I'm also really committed to staying anonymous and like sane, because I want to go to more of these SFI events, and I don't want them to know, my ulterior motives. So I grabbed the woman, the facilitator, and I was like, you did such a great job. You were such like an elegant, engaged facilitator. I'm curious about your take on tyranny. I'm wondering if that's your own personal opinion or if that's an SFI organizational opinion. And then she like pulled it back into like oh, no, it's just something we're concerned about. But it was the weirdest exchange. And I was telling someone else about it. It's like, you know, those videos we've seen where like you'll see Hillary Clinton's eye flip for like a second to like a lizard eye and back.
Yeah.
That was the conversation I was having with her, where she was like going in and out of like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to say, but this is really the truth. And it was like this weird, like she revealed too much, then she pulled back. And then I realized, like, I think she must know exactly who I am, which is why she's doing this push-pull thing.
So have you ever watched, I don't know if she's on YouTube, she may have gotten deleted and she may be somewhere else, but I used to watch this like Bombard's body language person or whatever. And
I've seen her a couple times.
Yeah, about how the eye movements can show what part of the brain they're accessing for the material that they're going to speak. And like sometimes certain eye movements, even though they seem weird, it actually means they're searching their mind for like the answer that is the truth. And other times it's like they're going to another part where they have stored like what they're supposed to say or whatever that can.
Right.
So there's some of that could definitely be happening. In addition,
no, there was nothing with her eyes. I was just using that as a metaphor in terms of like she was stuttering between like globalist psychopath and this is what a sane person would say.
I have an idea. That might make her more comfortable so you can get the honest answer. Your PsyOps shirt, your little finger puppet that you're using in there, you should make yourself a life-size one and you can wear that there and say that you identify as a global lizard. Right? But seriously, like there's more of a chance that you'll get an honest answer if you sort of disarm the situation by, you know, identifying as some
like a Black Lives Matter shirt.
Right. Or so, yeah, like something like that. I like the other one better. It's more fun. Okay, let's go to the box and see what we got. All right, let me go back to where we left off. Let's see there. I've already been there. Yeah, okay.
Chris Sean is clearly didn't see our show on Whitney Webb.
Who? Chris
Sean.
Okay, I didn't see that one. Okay, thoughts on James Corbett. I haven't seen a lot of him lately because I know he was really early to leave the censorious platforms and I admire and respect him for that. He has the size and type of following that allowed him to do that. Props to him for that. So I don't really know where he's at or what he's talking about. There's a lot of things I like about James Corbett and respect about James Corbett. And then there's like other things that like I don't want to say are a problem for me because sometimes like when I thought them, it was like, well, I disagree and therefore I don't like that, but I'm in a different place with disagreeing or, you know, whatever now. So I think he's definitely done like mostly good, more good than, you know, I'm sure we all accidentally do harm or some people intentionally. I think he's done a lot of good work. I think he's human. I don't think he's perfect. I know for certain, like he felt bad at one point about having drawn so much attention to Sibel Edmonds, who then later sort of lost her mind. And he did acknowledge that he felt bad for having done that. So he does seem, you know, like when he gets it either wrong, she was right about a lot of things, but the way she sort of exited stage was not cute. And so discernment, judgment, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really tuned in lately, so I don't know where he is at with things. But he's been someone that I've had definite times where I've watched a lot of what he does. I think I've been a subscriber of his. I think I support him financially for longer than anyone else. I think I still do, even though I don't really look anymore. I think he makes it real easy. I think he has like a $1 level or a $2 level or something. So let's see. Later, we're talking about just whatever. We're just making it up as we go.
This is a test. We're testing out.
Right. Whitney did an interview with Dark Journalist. I did see that. I started watching it and then I forgot to go back to the rest. I'm gonna have to go back and finish watching. I did come in my feed and I started listening. And then let's see, really always thought she seemed on the legitimate side of things. Abby Martin is another story, something changed there. Yeah, Chris, you know, like the Whitney Webb situation is complex, right? Because there's like a lot of good work and a lot of things she says that are, you know, like we want to say, yeah, it's hard to like separate your sort of personal likes from like what someone's intent is. But I think there's, you know, enough questions there that like it's fair for us to ask them. And I'm completely open to being either totally right, totally wrong, or anywhere in between about it. But when my intuition says like look a little closer before you digest the meal, then I do that. So that's all. But she has definitely done some good work. I'm not saying.
And I like her. I don't have the issues that Emily has with her.
Yeah.
Although
Okay.
I wish she would switch up her tones when she's talking. It's all this weird kind of like drony, but that's not a real criticism. I think that her
So,
research-
Laren Links was one of the people who's been asking me on Patreon and locals when we're going to go back, and she asked here too that we will return. Well, we talked about it a little bit right here, and we'll be returning to that more. Now it seems like more people are interested now, so maybe our like laying off of it for a little bit made people hungry for it. So
those shows are a lot of work because it's not like just listening to something while multitasking. It's like focus, dig.
Yeah. Jonna wants to know if you saw the SFI podcast about quantum language.
No, but I'm asking for the link. I would love to. Is it quantum language as in like programming in AI, or is it relevant to what I'm doing as well? Or are they just trolling us and like using our words?
It's that, right? Jonna monitors all of the people that are like sort of I don't want to have like 5D. Like I don't think that they're necessarily going, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll troll them, but somehow the energy, the like glass bead gamey kind of thing. Like we can talk about something and then 5 of our favorite people will be talking about the same thing, but like in a different iteration, which is how like Michael and I were starting to notice things when we first started playing the glass bead game, right? It'll just pop up in every iteration all around you. But the fact that some of our favorites seem to be playing with us is novel as well. And I guess we should.
So Daniel Pitchbeck just put out a Substack about the Jewish question.
You just got that notification?
I saw it. I do not subscribe, but I saw it on his Facebook, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sidestep that.
All right. So Doom's Dungeon says she was tying it into complexity theory too. It would be cool if she would go on the show. Maybe I can ask her to. Yeah, if enough people send a request to Allison McDowell to come on the show, then maybe when she starts doing them again, she will. Yeah, I mean, her work is excellent, right? Like there's some challenges but I'm sure people find me challenging as well. But I she's a phenomenal researcher and dot connector, and you can't take any of that away from her for sure.
Are you talking about Allison McDowell?
Yeah, I think that's who he was talking about. But so, yeah.
Her phone number, which I appreciate. I've just been slammed the past couple of days, but I'm excited to connect and share notes for sure.
Okay, awesome. So I think this is a better time. Like during the time I was trying to reach out with her was when like a lot of people were dogpiling on her for the whole thing that happened several months ago. And she,
What happened several months ago?
Oh, with the whole back and forth between her and Derek Rose and Catherine Austin Fitz and, all that kind of stuff about.
I didn't know anything about it.
Oh yeah. I'm not going to, I'll tell you, but whatever it is, like her work is excellent. And that's really all that matters, like right here at this point.
Yeah.
So Jonna likes hate listening. It can be fun and you're good at it, Jonna. And I like your commentary that you provide to me since I don't have time to do it. You just give me the like 1 sentence distillation of all of that. Have we looked into the Lucius Trust and the players associated with it? Some people were looking into that like before I was a content creator and I was just like consuming content. I went down some of those rabbit holes as far as that. And I don't know, it's just that's not my, what do you say, Laura? Not my circus, not my monkey, or not my monkey, not my circus or something. That one's not.
I say not my paradigm, just to be more opaque and scare more people away.
Yeah. So the SFI lifeboat consilience rabbit hole is a better one for me. I
feel like consilience is the hook. That seems to be the most mainstream hook. So I feel like that would be the focus to like bust it open to get the most other content creators and people to clue into what's going on. Because we could pull down that house of cards so quickly, I think, from that entry point.
Yeah. Yes, Jonna says the SFI podcast was on language, not the AI thing.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out.
Okay, let's see. Whitney did acknowledge her Glenn Beck interview was terrible, which is respectable. I didn't think the interview was necessarily terrible. I thought it was an interesting choice. And the fact that right after her came Bibi Netanyahu should like draw some interesting, questions. But okay, Daniel, she's going to send it to you. Jonna's going to send it to you. Let's see. Heather, so yes, Jonna thinks that Heather of Brett and Heather visits the cafe, the Project Kids Cafe. I think you might be right. Let's see, Misty Miller laughing about Dani's
I mean,
comment.
they definitely track what we're saying.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's almost always like a response in some sort of like cipher or coded way.
And you can tell when Heather's like really chuffed, when she's like mad at us.
So mad, I know. And then, yeah, it is interesting. Misty is laughing about your comments on Daniel Pinchbeck. He like did a double header the last few weeks between the JQ and the attack that isn't really an attack on Graham Hancock, right?
Yeah, isn't it interesting that it seems like it was that David Fuller was like the entry to like pull him back in.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was like his reentry, if he qualified, if he did it well enough, if he got like one other person like Jamie Wheeler or whatever to like join in, then they're like, oh, he can still, like attract other players. Yeah. Dooms Dungeon says he has his own issues with Allison. They've gotten into tips, but she does excellent research and analysis. She came on my old Doom and Gloom channel earlier this year, and it was great. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, she is a strong personality, as am I, as am Dani, and that will create some of these conflicts or disagreements or whatever. But at the end of the day, you can't take anything away from the level and quality of her research and dot connecting. Like whatever someone thinks that means might be different than what she thinks it means, or what people think should be done based on it might be different. But the facts that she lays them out, like it's really hard to poke holes in that. So
anyone in this conversation that we're having that's also doing this work that isn't a difficult person.
Right. Right. We're all different.
We're our own people, and I think to keep forging ahead amidst so much pushback. I mean, I'm not trying to excuse it. I've just noticed like we're all the people who won't go along just to get along.
You have to be difficult, like, right. You have to be difficult in order to sort of, stand your ground on your perspective. Right. And then balance that with like acknowledging that it's fair for other people to have a different opinion, but you're not moving from yours or whatever, or whatever it is. Okay. So then the other thing you were going to tell me about was you asked me if I knew anything about the Tucker Carlson JFK thing. So I have not watched the Tucker Carlson JFK thing. I've read articles that allude to it, but not in a way that make me understand like what the overall narrative is.
Okay, so once again, it was time for the JFK files to be released. And once again, they weren't released. But I think they like put some things out that weren't new, but were still super redacted. So Tucker, it was his 12:15 show. So I think that was Monday. And the first 10 minutes, he talked about it. And then he mentioned a whistleblower who confirmed that the CIA was directly involved and brought in some MK Ultra stuff. So it was a big deal because it was the first time on some sort of mainstream corporate media channel that this was stated outright. So there's been some other rumblings, but yet once again, like no justice is like, no one gives a shit. But I was wondering what your personal take on it was of like, is this an op? Like, why would they leak this out? Et cetera, et cetera.
So I think, okay. So the articles that I've read that allude to it talk about how Jolly and West is mentioned in it. And it basically what you said seems to match what the things that were being alluded to were. So I think there's a couple of things going on here. I think that like the jig is basically up about the term conspiracy theorist, right? And about like, the role that intelligence agencies actually play, right? So just like they were happy to make all the Eatsagate pay stuff like go away by the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, right? Then like they're going to, I think that like, it's going to be like, okay, we're going to acknowledge there's been some mind control, there's been some Manchurian candidates. It was part of this kind of thing, but that was like, we're not doing that anymore. There was the church committee hearing that. So it'll be a perfect chance for RFK and Robert Malone to get on and say, most people don't know about the church committee hearing in the right in the Congress in 1975. Because I'm hearing a lot of people mention that. In fact, Glenn Greenwald mentioned that again yesterday when referencing something else. So I think there's going to be a lot of focus on the thing that it was that at that time period. And maybe it's time to discard the language that was created around that, i.e. conspiracy theorists, and maybe they're going to start calling them like a radicalized something or others instead, right? So there's a shift going on here. They're going to use a truth that people like you and I have identified the op, but there was a time when I would have been delighted to hear MK Ultra discussed on mainstream news. Now I'm like, what's the angle? Like right. What bigger mind control are they going to whip this into? Right. So I'm not moved by this anymore, but my dad is, right. Like my dad, like he's what all the things I've told him about mind control, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. But when it's finally brought up 15 years later on NPR, and it's like the most like barely scratched the surface, he's like, have you seen this? Wow, this is a right kind of thing. It's the equivalent of like Michael Pollan being on the main stage and Kalindi in the back room, right? It's that. Like, yeah. Right. He's just blown away. And he's like, you never told me this part. It's like, yeah, no, I told you shit that like went way beyond that. But you're like, he is more bothered by like the idea of drugging, Johns in a whorehouse than he is at like, some of the more, main uses of the real uses of it. Right. So I think that, like, that is, I mean, this is, they know how effective the newly awakened are for stalling the larger awakening, right? Because everyone is going to be so just like Mickey said. Mickey is right. Like someone who just woke up from their nap is like more impressive than a person who's like been awake for 2 weeks on a drug binge, right?
Oh, that reminds me, because this was the same night that I lost my shit, was when Tim Pool did his thing with Steve Bannon and James Lindsay. Did you see that? They were all putting Naomi Wolf on this pedestal of truth telling, and that was where I was just like, I cannot take it.
They are so satisfied by someone who they have mostly disagreed with for most of their life saying a thing that they like, that they're completely willing to overlook the fact that she completely validates the other op that they're always up in arms about and whatever.
Of course. I'm like, at 2 Bannon, I expect more from Steve Bannon.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, in the sense that he has no problem to sort of like push back or be a dick or whatever.
No,
but like,
I love him because I have a crush on him.
I know you do. I understand most things about you, but there's still a few I don't quite understand. And that will have to be one of them. Let's go to the box and see what the friends are saying here. So, okay. All right. Difficult means critical thinker. People are offended by disagreements. So yeah, I love it. At this point, bring it on. If I don't have at least one major disagreement with someone who's close to me, then I'm suspicious, right? One major and several minor, a few medium, right? I'm also fine with disagreeing with someone about everything, but being entertained and amused by their perspective, right? Or sharpened by having the conversation with them or whatever it is. You say there's no files. They're just another distraction. Yeah, it's the same thing with this Twitter thing. Like none of these files are saying anything we don't already know, but it's getting a whole nother round of coverage from the alternative media, even though we all covered those things back when they actually happened. Like, so this is wasting time. Like there's got to be like some drone warfare happening in Yemen that we're not paying attention to or something while all this is going on. Because isn't that always what Melissa Melton always says, that they always do a school shooting or a false flag on the same day that they do an illegal war crime in another country, but no one pays attention to that because everyone's busy worrying about shooter, no shooter, all that kind of stuff?
This might be how they seed the fake alien invasion off. If they do say, okay, well, now we have to, this is all about the UFO files, and here comes the mothership, and you can't have any rights, and now we have a one world government.
There you go. I love when Dani brings up aliens. That's not like your usual sauce. And so I like it. All right. Let's see. There was a couple more. The ongoing JFK files retract and release nonsensical. And it's ridiculous, right? It's just it's kind of like the rapture is coming, right? It's like it's on that same level, right? Just a little more time until, Jesus comes back, or I don't even know if I'm saying that right, because I know so little about that. Have we seen anything from Jason Bashir's Archaics? He's creating a chronology of history from studying ancient texts. Many words and meanings have been misrepresented. I do not watch any Jason Bashir's things. So I don't watch that. Doom's Dungeon and the fact that they have such a polarizing figure like Tucker reporting it. Yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting that he's the one to finally say it. Laura,
I did have a friend reach out because she heard me mention it on, I don't know, some social media. And she's like, what? They came out with this? And I said, yeah, it was Tucker. And I could feel as soon as I said it that she was going to completely discount it because it was Tucker.
Right. Yeah. Right. There, that's an easy way to get people to not pay attention. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So Tucker could literally come and tell me that a thing that my dad was the only other person in the world to know about. Right. So the fact that Tucker says the exact same thing, would confirm the fact that he was right about that. And my dad would be like, I must have gotten it wrong just because. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Laura says it gets people Twitter pated that don't get worked up about other distractions. Which one?
Oh, we were just talking about
the JFK files. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's some people that are really they believe in that conspiracy, but not other conspiracies. And so if you want to get the people who don't get too excited about others.
Cross section.
Yeah. I think my dad thinks the JFK thing's a conspiracy, but he thinks all the other ones that I say are not, right?
But even that right there, that the American populace is so docile that even mind-controlled normies know that was a sham, and no one has a problem that the CIA continues to hide the files, which is completely illegal at this point. It's we'll take anything up the ass. We're the dumbest people. I look at what's going on in Brazil and it's will we ever, or are we just too busy Netflix and chilling?
Yeah. All right. Coniferous Forest says they've never come across us live streaming. Well, it's because we haven't done it. So there's a first time for everything. So here we are. Jonna just went to the SFI lecture list. There's only one lecture removed, the one on language. And there was a lot of coding talk in relation to current language usage. She took a screenshot. Let's see.
So wait, I'm just curious. So the one that you're mentioning is now gone.
Yes, that's what she's saying. That's the only one that's been removed, but she had taken a screenshot of it at the time she watched it. So she's going to send you the screenshot. That's what I do. I take screenshots of things that I'm afraid might get removed or that I want to watch later and whatnot. And half the time I don't go back, but I have them there.
I did hear that archive.today isn't as controlled as web archive.
Yes, I've heard that as well. Could you cover sugar addiction topic? It would be awesome, maybe at some point or whenever it fits you both. I have an entire series on sugar addiction called Sugar as Programmable Matter on this YouTube channel, and I've spoken about it in other ways over the years. So I think I did a show.
Monk fruit is your friend. Monk fruit is the best replacement for sugar, but you kind of want to get off of the sweet titty in general. Yeah.
But make sure you get monk fruit that isn't combined with something else, because the things that they're always they try and combine it with because it's expensive always are issues. So I just get I get the monk drops, the pure monk fruit. Different views are showing how we were built. Yep. Let's see. Lots of people enjoying listening to us. Sugar addiction. Yeah. The Sugar is Programmable Matter series is still there. It's old and I'm very unpolished, but the information is still dead on. I think there have been all kinds of things that have come out that support what I had to say, but I wasn't saying it for that reason. It was just coming through and I couldn't stop it. So anywho, all right. Anything else? I think we have, this was far exceeded any expectations I had. I thought that it would literally be me, Dani, Laura, and Jonna talking about Potemkin vaginas for 15 minutes to see if this worked. I would
like to take this moment to announce that I got my yellow belt today.
Yay! Maybe we should put up that picture of you in the middle splits in your Hapkido class. That was painful and impressive.
It could be our show cover.
We had 65 people here at one point, and there's still 64. So this was an awesome success. Wordspodcast.locals.com is the hub. We are going to have some changes coming in the new year, and this experiment went well, so this will likely be one of them. Yep. And I know many of you support us long time individually and collected together, and we appreciate you, and we wish you happy holidays, happy new year. And this was fun, so we'll be doing it again real soon. So
yeah, super fun. Merry happy all of it. Thank you guys for being here with us.